Hello everyone, my name is Blitz, and welcome to this first real installment in my new series, Is the Radeon 5850 Still Any Good? Where we take a look at the classic ATI graphics card, the Radeon HD 5850, and see how it performs with modern PC games. And our main focus will be multi-platform titles that were released on the PC, PS4, and Xbox One in some relatable way, shape, or form. Focus on this first installment is arguably the biggest PC release this year, hell maybe in the past few years. Grand Theft Auto 5. Unfortunately, it took a year and a half of waiting after the 360 and PS3 releases, and almost half a year after the PS4 and Xbox One versions, before PC gamers got to experience the vast and amazingly realized city of Los Santos in its most modern form. Lucky for the 5850, being the old hag of a card it is, actually sits a cut above GTA 5's published graphics requirements for AMD/ATI graphics, the Radeon 4870. However, there is a huge problem from the get-go before we get into anything: video memory. Like so many new generation games, this is a devourer of VRAM, and the 5850 I'm using only has a gigabyte of GB DDR3 memory. How this game can run and look on such a relatively paltry amount of video memory space will be critical in my conclusions. Now, we are looking to attain three main performance attributes to determine whether the 5850 is still a reasonable performer in GTA 5. Number 1. 1080p. Sub-true HD is for console peasants, and PC gamers should not expect anything less. Number 2. The game can't look like ass. Some things like medium and high textures may not be able to run reasonably on such a small amount of VRAM, but in the end, it comes down to complete visual quality. And finally, number 3. Nominal 30 FPS frame rates. Dips are okay as long as the majority of the frame rate is above this threshold. Okay, so let's see how Grand Theft Auto 5 runs on the Radeon 5850. Okay, so according to MSI Afterburner, we're running about 69 frames per second, so let's go outside. Luckily, we're still under a gig of video memory. And it's still running 60. That's pretty good. Luckily, having a decent CPU will take care of recording for us and not be much of an issue. Let's go for a drive. Now you can see the shadows look like ass. Now I don't know if that's a video memory issue, if it's automatically allocating video memory resources to how good the shadows are going to look. But I mean, that's really the only thing that's kind of bothering me right now. Frame rate's still good. Still in the 40s. You know, GTA 5 was one of the reasons I built a new computer, and that had more to do with not the fact that I didn't think my Phenom 2 quad-core and my Radeon 5850 couldn't run the game. It was the problem that I was having was doing a memory upgrade for the system. For some reason, the motherboard was just not accepting any newer RAM modules. I think it might have been a voltage issue. I just couldn't find something that fitted such an old DDR3 voltage that motherboard was made for. So it was nice to see that, hey, that system would have ran it. And I can already tell there are some latency issues, it feels like it's dropping frames and the frame pacing's kind of bad. Now, despite the issues with frame pacing, I could tell this game could be pushed further on this card, so I decided to bump up some of these values, especially the shadow quality since it looks so bad and so blocky, and I turned on soft shadows at their softest setting, as well as bumped up the anisotropic filtering, and even turned on ambient occlusion and tessellation. And it looks a little bit better, definitely. We've gotten an appropriate hit in frame rate, not surprisingly, but it is still running just under 40 frames per second. And we are recording at the same time. I'm sure if we got rid of recording, it would boost up a little bit. Let's go out to the coast and see how the water looks and runs. So I think we're probably running just a little bit better than PS3 and 360 visuals. Of course at 1080p and a pretty steady 30 frames plus per second. So that is pretty good. Hello, kitty cat. He just jumped up in front of me. Little bastard.
Man, you got off lucky, homie.
Find some population. They are kind of fading in. I wonder if that's a video memory issue or if that's just because of the game settings.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry about last night. I was a little drunk.
How were you? So after dabbling into a little bit more testing and whatnot, I decided to boost up some of the more critical settings higher, including texture quality, and I even turned on FXAA. And what I noticed was that performance was still pretty good for the most part. I still have frame pacing issues out the ass, but that is actually a normal thing even with newer graphics cards in GTA 5. So what we were essentially getting is graphics that actually approach and maybe even match some of what we see on the PS4 and Xbox One versions. Now, I was also surprised by the fact that this game didn't crash, even with the high texture settings, even though the game tells us that it's going to be using 2 gigs of video memory. So either the VRAM counter in the options menu is just overestimating the resources necessary to run this game, or the game is running textures, or streaming textures rather, from our storage medium, which is a solid state drive, into VRAM very, very quickly, faster than we can really notice or to affect the frame rate. Now that being said, it is during driving sequences, going across town, that's where we hit these frame pacing issues by far the most. Not during walking down the street, anything like that. So I am starting to think it really has to do with the fact that we're streaming data out of our storage medium into system and video memory, and I think that's where the hitch is happening. Now also, I need to consider that the fact that what the game is telling me as far as the video memory that's going to be used versus what is being shown to me by MSI Afterburner, which you can see running down in the right corner. There are times, even though the game is telling me it will be using 2 gigs of video memory, it's sometimes not using 700 or 800 at all. It's using less than that. And I find that very mysterious as far as to why it's not using as much video memory as it's saying it's going to. Now, in this case here, we have a whole bunch of the settings turned up, but I believe we have textures actually on their normal settings, but we have shaders turned up, as well as another number of other aspects of the game turned up as well. Now, some of you may be asking, well, maybe your recording solution, in this case, which is Open Broadcasting System, maybe that is what is causing some of your frame pacing issues. And I'll be honest, that can sometimes happen. It sometimes adds some frame pacing issues to any of the games that I record with. But even without OBS on at all, I was still getting these same issues. It was still there. And it must be noted, and I think I already said this once, but frame pacing is an issue with this game with pretty much anything, even high-end video cards from AMD and Nvidia, like 980 Ti's. It is still an issue. So obviously, I think this goes beyond the hardware that we're using, as old as it is, as old as the 5850 is. But I think what we have here is an issue that needs to be solved down in the game itself. It is not the graphics card. I don't think it's my hardware at all. I don't even think it's OBS running in the background on top of all this that is causing this problem. I think it is the game itself. So in conclusion, do I think the 5850 hits all 3 marks in GTA 5? 1080p? Yes. Game still looks pretty good? Yes. We can turn up some of the settings quite a bit actually. Do we get 30 frames a second? Well, technically yes. You're getting well above that in many areas. So I think the 5850 qualifies for being a fairly decent card for GTA 5, as old as that card really is. And of course, I would never recommend somebody goes out and buys a used Radeon 5850 for this game. Please God, don't. Unless you're like me and you just want to do some stupid tests just for funsies and for shits and giggles. By all means do that. I enjoy this kind of crap. But I would definitely spring for a much newer video card. On the AMD side, I'd recommend an R9 270 or 370, and in the NVIDIA camp, I'd recommend a GTX 950, bare minimum. They'll run this game a lot better than this 5850 will, even if it had enough video memory to really handle this game properly. So for any of you who might actually be stuck with a Radeon 5850 still, these are my recommended settings for this card and this game to still get good performance and good visuals at 1080p. Of course, your mileage may vary. You may want to turn up some of these settings, especially if you have one of those rare versions of the 5850 with 2 GB of memory. In the end, I just hope you found this video informative as well as entertaining. Hopefully it gave you some insight as to how powerful some of those past cards really are. And even though GTA 5's engine and design is really rooted in the past generation of PC hardware and gaming consoles, the PC release actually pushes hardware quite hard. So it is fairly impressive to see a 6-year-old video card run this game as well as it does at the settings that it's running them at. So in the end, yes, the 5850 can run GTA 5 reasonably well and still look great. Now, of course, this is only video number 1 of a number of videos chronicling the 5850 and its performance with newer games from the past couple of years. So make sure to stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to like this video if you really enjoyed it, and dislike it if you did not enjoy it. I guess that's your prerogative, although I don't want you to dislike it. I hope you did enjoy it. Feedback is great. Make sure to leave a comment if you have something interesting to say, or even non-interesting to say as well. But I hope to see you next time with later videos, and I hope you have a good one. Thanks for watching.
We are winning, yes. Do not underestimate the enemy. This is their home, and they have far more reason to fight and die than we do. Now, sir.
Side. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, thank Jesus.